Hi, I'm Alexis. I'm one of the co-presidents of Active Minds. I am a second-year clinical mental health graduate student.
Hi, my name is Charlene Hanisch-Tyson. I am the advisor of Active Minds. We're going into our 10th year. We are small but mighty. We have been very active on campus, and we're all trying to navigate how to fight the stigma of mental health as well as promote education and resources. So we're doing this pandemic style. I'm also a therapist at the counseling center on campus in Eastman Hall, 3rd floor.
My name is Aaron Sadlow. I'm a third-year senior, and I am a psychology and Spanish major. This is my second semester in Active Minds.
Hi, I'm Kaylee. I am an Active Minds alum. I was a co-president, and now I'm just here to help break the stigma and to create conversation.
I'm Samantha. I'm a graduate student in the College Counseling and Student Development Program, and I am a co-advisor for Active Minds. So I will get us started here with the podcast. So in today's podcast, we will be talking about managing social isolation during COVID and our experience with isolation during this pandemic. So just going into a little bit of history and context, we know that over time, humans have kind of evolved to feel safe by sticking together or having that human interaction component. And so kind of with COVID-19, with social distancing, that requirement kind of put us to being alone, or maybe not necessarily being alone, but just having less physical contact with people than we normally would because of social distancing. So this is kind of doing the exact opposite of what our bodies have evolved to do over time. And because of this, it could be alarming to our system. And so when that alarming in our system, our body kind of gets into that survival mode if we're not able to stay connected. So what survival mode can look like is it could result in less sleep, physical and emotional problems, as well as just behavioral changes. So in this episode, we'll kind of go through and discuss our experiences and also provide some tips and resources for how to manage social isolation. Who wants to start off with just kind of sharing your overall experience with social isolation and how that impacted you? And then maybe talk a little bit about recognizing that loneliness, or when you first recognize that you were in that survival mode, and then maybe like what you kind of did to cope as well.
I can start us off. So during the beginning of the pandemic, when we were just first going into quarantine, I kind of enjoyed the break from everything and just having some time to myself, being able to play video games, read books, watch movies, making time for things that in the past I didn't have time for. I thought I would really thrive in that environment because I'm kind of an introvert, a homebody anyway. And during the peak of COVID, I was doing pretty good during the peak of quarantine. It wasn't until about August when policies started being lifted, people started going out, that I really got hit hard with isolation and not feeling good, not kind of sitting with the uncertainty. I was seeing people go out and do things that I wasn't doing. They weren't social distancing, they weren't wearing their masks. On social media, I'd see people doing get-togethers, going out partying, just interacting with people. And I want to interact with people too. And it made me feel a little bit, I don't want to use the word gaslit, but it made me feel a little bit gaslit because here I'm seeing these scary things on the news. I feel like I have to protect myself and my family, but there's these people who are out partying and, being together, going out to eat at restaurants and going out shopping wherever they'd like. Whereas I'm at home, and I'm wearing my mask out in public and I'm doing my best not to go outside to eat. I'm doing my best not to go to restaurants, not go shopping unless I need to, not interacting with my own family because I'm afraid of getting them sick, or, vice versa. That was about the most tough time for me with this whole experience. Because I wanted to interact with others, and I didn't realize how much I valued just being able to talk to coworkers at work and see other students on campus and see my family whenever I wanted to, especially like my older family members. Like I really took those moments for granted, and now I'm worried about getting them sick, so I refrain from seeing them. Yeah, does somebody else want to go and talk about their experience, and then maybe we could get into tips and coping methods?
I know that, so for me, I am a very immunocompromised person. So for the first few months, I wasn't going anywhere or doing anything. And most of my friends had that same fear I did because I had a birthday over the pandemic, like right at the beginning, and everyone was too terrified to see each other. And so for me, it was like sitting at home, and I had a significant other who didn't understand the boundaries that were being in place. The partner I had at the time was going out and working and seeing friends every day. And I want to say, like, I was kind of envious of it, being a person who was at home and knew I couldn't. And it made it so, like, I couldn't see that person either because I was afraid of what they might bring into my home. So I would, like, say that for me, it consistently just kind of ate away at what I was doing. And I just kept telling myself, like, God, I'm so glad I was I'm going to do it later, like, kind of person, because it gave me projects to do. But once those projects ran out, I was struggling to create a routine that I would stick to. So I wasn't just waking up at 8 one day or 1 p.m. the next and maybe potentially working out. Like, I very fortunately have had a dog at home, and she has kept me up and moving, because without that, I wouldn't have had a reason to step outside for the entire being. And I think that that would have made the pandemic so much harder for me.
My whole experience with this has been a real roller coaster ride. I was like in Florida when this was first classified as a pandemic, and me and like everybody I knew at the time was like, yeah, sweet, an extra week of spring break, not knowing that it was gonna extend basically the rest of the semester. And then when things like started slowly being like stripped away because of precautions, like personally, like I went to my first like MLB spring training game in Florida one day and was going to go to one the next day, but it got canceled the day in between. And then the season got postponed. A lot of things just got taken away. And at first, when I had gotten back, nothing really changed. Since I was, I guess, classified as like an essential worker. I worked at a gas station, so my hours never really went down. They even went up. So I guess I was still really busy, but it started to become slightly depersonalizing and robotic, if that makes sense. Even though I saw people a lot working at a gas station, the level of like interpersonal communication with people I knew and was able to make connections with was down. I just felt like a cog in a machine. So I guess that was kind of the harder part. But once the stay at home was first lifted, it started getting a bit better because I stayed wearing a mask in public, and if I was ever in gatherings with friends, it was only like 3 to 4 people. So we made sure to keep it safe and secure. So it's just really been like up and down, to say the least.
This is Charlene. I can speak a little bit about professionally what this has been like. Of course, as a clinician, my greatest concern are my clients. And back in March and then in April, when we all just kind of shut down and couldn't connect, I was really concerned about many of my clients, just because of their own clinical work that they've been doing, and then not allowing that to continue at the level that we were at. And then also all of the students, the whole entire student body. This was, you all talk about, we get an extra spring break, and it was pretty, an ability just kind of to get that extended breather. But then after that continued to get extended, I just really worried about how are students doing? How are they managing? How are they coping? And I knew that mental health was going to be on the rise because of it.
Mhm.
And I think we all did. And so I just, for a while there, I had no real ability to connect or be available, including my colleagues. And so we just started to call. We did phone sessions, and in my practice, that's unethical. You just don't really do that unless unless you do kind of a welfare check with somebody. But you just don't do therapy over the phone. So I've really had to open up my mind and kind of have the belief that this is better than nothing. Clients, students really appreciated that. And then technology caught up to us, and we were able to provide Zoom telehealth pretty quickly. And at first it was really weird. I'm not used to looking at myself all day. For a long time, I didn't know how to turn that part off. But also just there's something about that interpersonal connection when you have someone right there with you, having that conversation that I really do miss. But I'm also so thankful that we have this technology that we can continue to do this work and make a connection therapeutically at this level. And of course, it's not the same. There's some pros and cons to it. The pro is that all students have to do is wake up, roll over, and press a button, and there they are. And they can be anywhere that they would need to be and want to be, and they have complete access to a therapist. The difficult part is there's something about actually getting up, going to an office. At that point, you're starting to think about what you want to talk about, making that connection, seeing the entire body language. And so that's missing. I've had the privilege of being able to be in my office the entire time. I've never worked from home. One, because it's hard to have maintain that confidential relationship. So the university has allowed all of us clinicians to stay in our office because we've been able to socially isolate. I'm definitely getting used to Zoom telehealth, but I miss students on campus. I miss being able to just look out the window and see a lot of students. I miss them in the waiting room. I miss walking. So at times I just have to get up and walk out of my office because all I'm doing is pushing a button and going into the next session. And so I can't wait to get back to regular practice. I do know that telehealth will remain. Because there are benefits to it. But I really would like more of a balance. I miss students. And I miss seeing my colleagues because we don't get to see each other's faces. Every time we step out of our office, we're masked up just out of respect and safety. And then personally, the first thing that I do is I go home and I exercise. And I know that we'll get into the tips, but that moving your body and getting that full spectrum of light is so important, as well as having some kind of social connection. So I'll turn that over to whoever wants to maybe talk about tips and strategies.
Sam, would you want to share your experience at all? Because if you want to, I'm not going to make you. You're just as much, a part of this as anybody else.
Yeah. So my experience is a little bit different than everybody else. It's a little bit like Erin's. So I actually was a store manager during the pandemic. So I was kind of on the retail side at the very peak of it. So I would say up until I came to school for my master's program in August, I basically worked throughout the pandemic. So that was really interesting just for me to see how everyone or the progression of the pandemic with what people were buying in retail spaces and also what supplies were going in and out. It was just really interesting to interact with all the customers because then my hours, kind of like what Erin talked about, just increased it and then never really stopped. So it was just really interesting to come to work every day. And I would base my work and my team members at work, they like became my family. They were like the only people I would see, and then I would constantly see customers all the time. But it was also very strange for me to go to work and have all the face masks and like all the protective equipment I needed, and also interact with customers, but then like go home and like basically like self-isolate and like not see my family. But then I would go to work and see like so many different people all the time. So that was always very strange in my mind, and like a little bit hard to comprehend that like I could go to work and see like so many people, but then I would go home and like kind of be alone. So that was like an interesting thing for me to kind of figure out and navigate through that time as well.
I think that one of the big things that's missing sometimes is, so I worked in food, and most places shut down to like a core staff, like a skeleton staff, because they weren't going to be busy enough, or they didn't know how the pandemic would impact them. So they were doing to-goes. And because, like I've said, I'm high risk, I was one of them who wasn't called to come back right away. And it wasn't until I felt comfortable going in, until they had policies and procedures. I think the hard part when it comes to that is, sorry, she has some input too.
So that is a dog.
Yes, so that is a dog. Sorry, you guys. She also had a hard time with the pandemic. In case you guys are wondering, it impacts animals too, because I was home every day all the time, and then suddenly I was not home every day all of the time. But as somebody who has been to counseling, I just want to touch on what Charlene was saying. The telecommunication is so much different than actually being able to go into the office, because for me, I experience such paralyzing depression that it's like very small mundane tasks like brushing my teeth or doing the dishes are really hard for me. So when I was in counseling, getting up, and even if I was like in sweatpants or jeans, like getting up and getting there was my biggest win of the day. And I know how hard it is, because even though being home is comfortable, if you're not in a good relationship or a toxic environment at home, sometimes that safety of just rolling over bed, like off of bed and clicking your button, still isn't necessarily giving the same experience, and that can be hard. And it's okay to identify how much harder things are too, now that we have so many things in place.
Right. So some of my clients, to kind of give that close to what they're used to, is they will get up and they'll actually come to the counseling center, and we have a relaxation room that we can check out for students, and they can be on the third floor and have that session, but just not face to face. I should say, if any student is experiencing suicidal ideation and they really are concerned about their safety and their well-being, all they have to do is walk up to second floor, check in, and then you'll be brought to first floor or third floor, and you will be seen immediately. So I should say that we are assessing for suicide, and so we just have a larger room. We both mask up, and we keep it brief, but yet we plan for safety. And those clients who really do want to be somewhat on campus and in the building, that we can arrange for the ability to at least be in somewhat proximity, but yet still virtually. And so there's something to say about getting up, getting dressed, and getting out. Mm-hmm. There's some good value in that. I'm also, a lot of students are just really, really liking Zoom. That they actually prefer it. So it really depends on the person.
Should we transition into coping tips now?
Yeah, good idea.
Mm-hmm. Is there someone who'd like to start us off, or I can? Or
yeah, Alexis, what's your best coping strategy?
Okay, so Routine has been critical for me. If any of you, if you've been to my apartment, you see that I have a schedule on my fridge. I have a planning app on my phone. Like, I need to keep schedule. Just one for like productivity to get stuff done, and secondly, just to like plan in my self-care, because I'm the type of person where I'm go, go, go. Like, I will completely forget about self-care, or I'll like go on my phone and scroll through social media instead. And social media is something, also another tip I have, trying to reduce social media usage. It can be very toxic during this time. We have the elections coming up, so there's politics, and we also have the pandemic. So it's definitely layered. Social media has a toxic aspect just to begin with like comparing yourself to others. So really trying to reduce that, and finding connections in ways that you can. I'm trying to be mindful of how much screen time I use. I've been going for walks, but in order to connect with others, we kind of have to rely on phones and Zoom and that kind of thing for connection. So I've been trying to do Zoom chats with family and friends. I've been playing video games online with some of my loved ones. And also there's this website called Cast where you can watch like a show on Netflix together. You can share a screen with somebody. It's a little bit smoother than Zoom is. So I've been watching The Haunting of Bly Manor with a friend of mine. So it's been really good.
Perfect. Well, a coping strategy that I use that Kaylee talked about a little bit during her experience was just making sure that I have some outside time or like physical activity. I would say like for the first 5 months, especially when I was still working those pretty heavy hours, I spent like no time outside at all. And I realized that really just impacted my mental health. And so once I started incorporating outside time into my schedule, that I found that helped a lot. Even if instead of having lunch indoors, I would do it outside, or like finding just time to be outdoors. I found that was very helpful for just me to get fresh air and like get my body moving. And then also like Alexa's just scheduling time on Zoom or like communicating with my family. I have a pretty large extended family, so kind of with the pandemic and social isolation, it was very weird for us not to be together all the time. But I found that when we like schedule things over Zoom, even though it felt different, it still felt like, oh, like they were still there and I could still communicate with them. So it wasn't, I didn't feel too disconnected from them.
I guess the only real thing that I've practiced is watching TV shows that I watched like a long time ago, or something that like takes you out of the present moment and forget what's going on. Like we said, like if you watch a TV show and you see like a group of people, you're like, wait, no mask. So it definitely helps take you out of the moment and remember what things like used to be like, and it kind of gives you a good kind of perspective and nostalgia for what things were and what you aspire for them to get back to. It's so it's just good to like decenter you from that, because it can be really like, I guess, depressing to be stuck in this like cyclic loop of just thinking about pandemic, and so it just takes you out of that for a little bit.
I can speak about a lot of what my clients are talking about is really trying to watch their alcohol intake because that has increased considerably for a lot of my clients. One, because they're bored. Two, because they're stressed. And three, it's accessible. It helps curb loneliness. But they're also knowing that that's a slippery slope, because they don't want to create a problem that they have to address a lifelong, as well as it affecting their ability to focus academically and socially and emotionally. So also a lot of my clients are talking about their weight. Because they're more sedentary, they are gaining weight. And that is really affecting their self-esteem and their self-worth and their motivations. So we're doing a lot of talking about healthy nutrition and exercise. Moving our bodies is so important. The other thing is video games. I know a lot of students are talking about they feel like their brain is changing and I'll ask them, how much are you video gaming? And it's hours and hours and hours, because that's a lot of time. That's the only social connection that they have and their outlet. But it also affects the brain. And so it is affecting their ability to concentrate academically. So I would like to offer a resource. I facilitate a kind of a meditation in a sense, or a relaxation opportunity. It's called Finding Your Calm. It's a Zoom. It's every Monday from 10 to 10:30. All you have to do is call the counseling center at 308-3171 and ask to be put on that list. And I would send you out a Zoom invite every week. We would also send a text reminder about that series. And you don't have to attend every week. And also the way I conduct it is you turn your mic off, you turn your video off, and I just go through a series of relaxation exercises. So it's called Finding Your Calm, and it's just a great way to start your week. We also talk about some journal ideas as well as setting an intention. I always have themes about that particular relaxation meditation exercise. Then my colleague Jason McCarty does the same series, or another series on Finding Your Calm Wednesdays from 3 to 3:30. Now he does his a little differently. His is a little more psychoeducation along with some relaxation exercises. So so you can join it on both, or you can choose one or the other, or whenever it fits. Again, there's no commitment. And then, of course, counseling here is still available for you. All you have to do is go on our website and request an appointment, or you can call our office, and we are seeing clients. So all you have to do is be a registered student, and you qualify. So we are here for you.